there's so much foot dragging on the part of the impeachment court. Also on the part of the impeached official. Pero ito po, once ito ay umusad, pag-usad po nito sa panig ng prosecution, hindi po ang prosecution ang magbibigay ng dahilan para maantala ito. Ang gusto ng prosecution, swift trial.
The Senate Impeachment Court has accomplished more in 1 week. There is no foot dragging that has been happening or has been claimed by the parties. I suggest that they just spend their energy to doing what needs to be done, what needs to be filed, instead of attacking the credibility of the impeachment court.
A seeming calm from lawmakers, a fierce showdown between their mouthpieces, with the nation sitting on edge, awaiting what's next in the Vice President's impeachment. Meanwhile, new fears of massive bloodshed rise overseas as Israel enters a fresh armed conflict, this time with Iran. Will the international community step in? And here at home, will duty to the Filipinos and the Constitution rise above loyalty and even alliances? I'm Stanley Palisada, and this is the Weekend Wrap. The Philippines enters a waiting game on the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Both chambers of Congress adjourned sine die last week, leaving key questions on where the trial is headed. The House is yet to receive the articles of impeachment sent back by the Senate, citing the need to clarify the upper chamber's formal orders. The impeachment court, meanwhile, insists a simple House certification is not enough. They want formal submissions.
Kung resolution man yon ng Kamara, kailangan nilang i-attach yon sa isang pleading na ang tawag ay compliance kaugnay sa order ng impeachment court.
The House prosecution panel still hasn't filed its motion for clarification, but one prosecutor insists the trial should go on with or without those orders.
Wala naman po sa Senate impeachment rules or the Constitution ang requirement na mag-submit kami ng certification. Hindi po nakadepende sa certification na ito ang pagtuloy ng impeachment case.
And now a war of words erupts between the newly named mouthpieces of both chambers. After Attorney Reggie Tongol was introduced as the Senate Impeachment Court spokesperson, House prosecutors named their own veteran litigator and human rights lawyer Attorney Antonio Odi Bucoy. Now, Bucoy says he's doing the job for free, all in the name of public service.
Ano nag-udyok sa akin na tanggapin ito? Para ho sa bayan. Kinausap ako ng ilang kaibigan na nasa prosecution panel, tinanggap ko po after talking to my family. Hindi ko na po kinakailangan ng bayad.
And in his first press briefing, Bucoy came out with guns blazing, accusing senators of dragging their feet. He adds late statesmen Jose Diokno, Joker Arroyo, and Lorenzo Tañada, whom he once worked with, would be ashamed of today's Senate.
Mahihiya sila. Ikahihiya nila itong ginagawa ng kasalukuyang Senado. There's so much foot dragging on the part of the impeachment court. Also on the part of the impeached official. Pero ito po, once ito ay umusad, pag-usad po nito sa panig ng prosecution, hindi po ang prosecution ang magbibigay ng dahilan para maantala ito. Ang gusto ng prosecution, swift trial.
Bucoy also believes Senate President Francis Escudero has committed grave abuse of discretion in handling the impeachment proceedings.
Ang mga naging actuation and ruling ni Senate President Chis Escudero as the presiding officer of the impeachment court ay wala ho sa saligang batas yan. Kagaya po ng pag-remand, ang hukom po hindi nagmo-motion. Ang nagmo-motion, yung mga partido. Yung mga grounds na binanggit ni Senator De La Rosa, yun din po yung grounds na iniakit nila sa Supreme Court. So, ang nangyari, si Senator De La Rosa, umaaksyon na parang defense counsel. Ayon ho sa saligang batas, kapag nailatag ang articles of impeachment dapat agad-agad mag-proceed sa trial. At dapat bigyan, iserve ng writ of summons ang impeached official para maglahad ng sagot or answer, not a motion to dismiss.
It's not just the House prosecutors calling out the Senate. Even legal luminaries, including one of the framers of the 1987 Constitution, has spoken out.
It's really very tiring, and I think the people are already angry about all of these tactics being done to make it a difficult process. It should not be a difficult process. The Constitution is very clear. There have been at least three impeachment cases already. It's handled by the Senate. There was no problem about I don't remember any problem that are being raised or being done now by the Senate. I think today we have a broken democracy.
Still, some argue bringing the matter to the Supreme Court may only cause further delay.
Ang isang dapat pag-aralan ay kung kaagad-agad bang pupunta sa Korte Suprema ay bibilis ang takbo ng proseso ng Senate Impeachment Court. Kung hindi po ito bibilis, ay yan ay kontra sa letter and spirit ng ating konstitusyon, yung sa provisions on accountability of public officials, na dapat pag may question dyan ay madaliin ang investigasyon para mapanagot yung dapat mapanagot.
There is a basis to question, pero ako mismo, I will advise not to go to the Supreme Court, because it may even be a trap. When you file, back down ka na ngayon sa court cases.
But the impeachment court spokesperson defends the Senate and fires back. Attorney Tonggol says it is the House prosecution that's stalling the process.
There is no foot dragging that has been happening or has been claimed by the parties. We have been expecting the communication from the House of Representatives and the House prosecutors as to the compliance that they have been talking about in the press conference and media releases that they have been doing for the past 3 days. But as of now, 7 days have passed and there is no such formal notice or compliance that has been filed with the impeachment court. I suggest that they just spend their energy to doing what needs to be done, what needs to be filed, as they say that they will file, and instead of attacking the credibility of the impeachment court.
Amid the debate, the Vice President, who is now abroad again for a personal trip, gears up for her defense. She revealed her legal team, 16 lawyers strong, mostly from the Fortun Narvasa and Salazar law firm. Founding partner Attorney Siegfried Fortun once served as counsel to former President Joseph Estrada during his impeachment. Her team also includes former DepEd spokesperson Michael Poa and the VP's former spokesperson, Reynold Munsaya. Despite saying she is ready, VP Duterte continues to hit back at her critics. She slams business groups that urge the Senate to move forward with her impeachment trial to show investors there is accountability in government.
Kahit nandyan o wala yung impeachment, wala na talagang investor confidence. Kaya wag nila ako gawing rason kung bakit pangit ang takbo ng ating ekonomiya. Kung gusto talaga nila ng accountability, ay mag-file ng mga kaso dyan sa mga korte. If we are to talk about accountability by business groups, dapat questionin din natin kung paano ginawa yung articles of impeachment at paano pinasa yung articles of impeachment papunta doon sa Senado.
But the palace rebuffs her claim that investor confidence is low. It does, however, welcome the business sector's call, saying they know what is best for the economy.
Mismong nasa business sector na po ang naaalarma sa nangyayari dito sa Senado patungkol po sa impeachment trial. Hindi po kasi manghihimasok ang Pangulo sa proseso sa Senado patungkol po sa impeachment trial. Pero kung yan po ang nakikita po ng mga mga nagnenegosyo, investors natin sa Pilipinas, eksperto sila sa mga ganitong bagay, kung ano ang mas makakabuti sa ekonomiya.
The Vice President's allies also in hot water. Calls for some pro-Duterte senators to inhibit from the trial are getting louder, especially after Ronald De La Rosa, Robin Padilla, and Amy Marcos publicly said they want the case junked. Critics say this violates their oath as senator judges to remain impartial. But Duterte pushes back. She argues if bias is a basis for inhibition, then even Senate Deputy Minority Leader Risa Ontiveros should recuse herself.
Hindi kasi tayo pwede magpa-inhibit ng mga senator judges based on bias. Dahil ang posisyon lang naman ng isang tao is you are for or against. Inday Sara, no? Kung ganun ang ating basehan sa inhibition, ay dapat din natin ipa-inhibit ang mga senators na meron ding bias against Sara Duterte. Senator Risa Ontiveros na in a public speech, sinabi niya na kailangan talaga burahin or kailangan wasakin, kailangan sirain, gibain ang pamilyang Duterte.
But Ontiveros stands her ground, saying she will decide based on facts and evidence and urges her colleagues to do the same.
Bilang Senator Judge ay titignan natin ng maigi ang lahat ng ebidensya na ipepresenta sa impeachment trial ni VP Sara Duterte. Nung nanumpa kami bilang Senator Judge, naging tungkulin namin sa Senado na suriin at bumoto ayon sa bigat ng ebidensya na ilalahad ng magkabilang panig sa impeachment trial, kakampi man o kritiko ng pangalawang Pangulo.
But that's not the only controversy. Senator De La Rosa and the Vice President's brother, Davao Mayor Baste Duterte, under fire for sharing an AI-generated video of Filipino youth supposedly opposing the impeachment. Journalists, lawmakers, and even the palace raised alarm, saying this spreads disinformation deliberately or not.
Ang pag-share ng mga katulad na ganyan, muli, disinformation, fake news, hindi po sana nanggagaling sa mga opisyal ng pamahalaan. Nakakaduda, mas nakakawalan ng tiwala kung mismo sa matataas na opisyal nanggagaling ang mga disinformation at fake news. Leader sila, yaan ay totoo sa pandinig at pananaw ng bawat isa. So dapat maging responsable sa anumang sinishare nila na impormasyon sa ating mga kababayan.
The sharing of an AI-generated video by a senator is outright responsible because, of course, it's not coming from a real person. If you are using a generated AI video just to illustrate, an opinion, because that's what all it contains, right? Just an opinion. It begs the question, is this coming from a real person? If you're trying to say na, because the caption read, mabuti pa ang mga bata nakakaintindi sa mga pangyayari. Now, if it's something to tell the people about how the youth thinks about the issue, then let it come from the real youth.
But the Vice President sees nothing wrong with it, drawing even more calls for her to undergo media and digital literacy training.
Wala namang problema siguro sa pag-share ng AI video in support of sa akin. Basta hindi ginagawang negosyo.
Vice President Sara Duterte is badly in need of media literacy and media education. Kasi kailangang maklarify na totoo, hindi dapat gamitin sa negosyo yung content na mali, but at the same time, yung ating mga ipinapakalat sa publiko, dapat yung reliable.
Another Duterte ally in the spotlight, the Justice Department claims the Dutch government has denied the asylum bid of former Duterte spokesperson Harry Roque. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla adds Roque is now trying his luck in Germany. But Roque hits back, calling Remulla a purveyor of fake news. Meanwhile, a Duterte-aligned party list group suffers another blow. The Commission on Elections has canceled the registration of Duterte youth for failing to submit accreditation requirements. The ruling may block the group's 3 nominees from taking their seats in the upcoming 20th Congress. Overseas, growing fears of a wider war as tensions explode between Israel and Iran. It began with Israel's surprise attack on June 13, hitting Iran's nuclear and missile sites in its so-called Operation Rising Lion. A few senior Iranian officials were killed. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the operation was meant to stop Iran from wiping Israel off the map.
This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal.
Iran retaliated with waves of ballistic missiles, lighting up the skies over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Iran's supreme leader warns of severe punishment, while its foreign minister calls the attack a declaration of war.
که رژیم صهیونیستی اشتباه بزرگی کرد. خطای بزرگی کرد. غلطی کرد و عواقب او رو بیچاره خواهد کرد به توفیق الهی. زندگی برای اونها تلخ خواهد شد بدون تردید. فکر نکنند که زدند و تمام شد. نه. کار رو اونها شروع کردند و جنگ به راه انداختند. ما به اونها اجازه نخواهیم داد که از این جنایت بزرگی که انجام دادند خودشون رو سالم خلاص کنند.
Now, countries like the United States are urging restraint. But Netanyahu says the only way to end this is by killing Iran's supreme leader.
So are you going to target the supreme leader?
Look, we're doing what we need to do. I'm not going to get into the details.
But U.S. officials tell us that the president flatly rejected a plan, an opportunity that the Israelis had to take out the supreme leader. Do you understand his concern? My understanding is his concern is that this would escalate the conflict beyond where it is already.
No, it's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict.
The U.S. clarified it had no role in the Israeli strikes. But President Donald Trump posted a warning to Iran surrender unconditionally as Washington's patience is wearing thin. Iran says over 500 people were killed, most of them civilians. Israel reports at least 24 civilian deaths. At least 8 Filipinos in Israel were injured in the crossfire, one of them in critical condition, after an airstrike hit their building. All are on the road to recovery. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has directed government to extend immediate help to affected Filipinos. But for now, he sees no need for mandatory evacuation.
We generally leave it to each individual or each family to decide for themselves whether or not they feel safe or whether or not they would like to be evacuated.
21 government officials were also trapped in Israel during the attacks. They reportedly include 9 mayors, 4 vice mayors, 2 party list representatives, and 2 regional directors. But the House says no sitting lawmaker from the 19th Congress is in Israel. Back home, a big-time oil price hike looms after attacks on Iran's South Pars gas field, the largest in the world, shared with Qatar. Prices may rise from 3 to 5 pesos next week, based on estimates from the Energy Department. But President Marcos vows to roll out subsidies for sectors hit hardest by the crisis.
We're starting already with the assumption that the oil prices will in fact go up, and I cannot see how it will not, because the Straits of Hormuz will then be blocked if it escalates. The oil cannot come out of its sources, so the prices will certainly be affected. If you remember during the pandemic, lalong-lalo na yung mga nagpapasada, yung mga para may hanap buhay naman sila, bigyan natin ng fuel subsidies. Now we will have to do the same for those who are severely affected, stakeholders, by any instability in the price of oil.
And that wraps up this week's Top Stories. I'm Stanley Palisada, and we'll catch you again next time for more of the latest headlines. Stay with ANC, the ABS-CBN News Channel. Never miss a story. Unlock exclusive access to uninterrupted streaming and premium news content. Subscribe to ANC 24/7 on YouTube and join ANC Prestige today.